Hey guys, tonight we slip into the morning mist of a realm not quite heaven, not quite earth. You're standing at the edge of Folkvanger Freya's field, a meadow where dew clings like crystal to wild grasses, and the air carries that sweet, sleepy perfume of distant blossoms. It's quiet, but not empty. The stillness is almost alive, like it's listening to you, or maybe humming a lullaby. Only bees and buried warriors can hear. There's something about this place gentler than Valhalla, but still haunted by echoes of swords. You don't see them at first, but you can feel them. The souls, the chosen half who didn't go to Odin. They're here instead, dreaming forever, beneath blooming apple trees and sky-wide clouds that drift like wool. There's no blood here anymore, only the flowers that drink what's left of memory. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward, each footfall muffled by moss and root. The land feels endless, stitched together by sun-dappled clearings and little streams so still they reflect the sky like melted glass. A breeze brushes your neck, cool and floral, like someone exhaled behind you. No one's there. Of course not. Or maybe they are. That's the thing about Folkvanger. Historians still argue whether it was a place for warriors, for lovers, or for those too wild to belong anywhere else. The birds don't chirp here, they sing in long, slow calls that stretch like harp strings across your mind. Somewhere in the distance, something glints. Not steel, not gold, something else entirely. But you're not ready to reach it just yet. You pass a patch of sunflowers, their stalks so tall they nod down like sleepy giants. Freya's magic, you'll learn, wasn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it was just this growing things, turning pain into petals, crafting silence that cradled rather than punished. As you move deeper, a low hum begins, soft, rhythmic, not quite music. It rises from beneath your feet, from within the very field itself. The energy here isn't static. It breathes, expands, contracts, like the garden is remembering something for you, or warning you, or both. You kneel near a mossy rock and brush it with your hand. Etched into the stone is a rune you don't recognize, jagged, curling inward like a hook or a question. Runes, after all, weren't just letters. They were spells, stories waiting to unfold. Some say Freya knew them all, even the forbidden ones Odin had to bleed himself to learn. A dragonfly lands on your arm, heavy as a coin. Its wings shimmer, not just with color, but with memory. You don't remember what exactly, but the moment it takes off a name, curls on your tongue that isn't yours. The truth is, no one really agrees on Folkvanger's layout. Some sources call it a meadow, some a palace. Some whisper that it shifts with your thoughts becoming what your soul most needs. For you, it's this sunlight and solitude, quiet paths through endless fields. For someone else, it might be cliffs and crashing waves, or an orchard where long-lost hands still prune the branches. But every version agrees on one thing: this land is Freya's, hers alone, given not by conquest, but by cosmic balance. A gift from the Vanir gods who ruled with nature, not war. Though let's be honest, she's got a bit of both in her veins. You lie back for a moment, the ground cradling your spine like a cradle. Overhead, clouds drift lazily by, some of them shaped like swans or cats. It's hard to say. You close your eyes for just a moment, but when you open them again, the mist has grown thicker. Something's coming! The mist pulls apart like curtains, and there, lumbering out of the white hush, come two enormous cats. Not the kind you'd scoop into your lap or tempt with a can of tuna. These creatures are shoulder high, their fur sleek and silvery with flecks of black, like they've been carved from moonlight and shadows. Their yellow eyes blink at you in slow, disinterested judgment, and behind them, almost silently, rolls a chariot. The wheels don't crunch the grass or stir the soil. They float just enough to give the illusion of motion without weight. Draped in woven gold and veiled in morning mist, the chariot carries her Freya. She doesn't announce herself. She doesn't need to. Her cloak shimmers like fallen leaves caught in a breeze. Her hair is long, somewhere between honey and wildfire, and it sways with a rhythm the wind doesn't control. You get the feeling that everything here obeys her, not from fear, but from admiration. You nod awkwardly. She nods back, but it's unclear if that means welcome or warning. You're in her realm now, after all. The cats slink around you, their steps soundless but heavy with meaning. One brushes its tail across your leg, and a static shock snaps up your spine. Freya watches, lips curled just slightly, either amused or mildly annoyed. She's hard to read, like someone who knows every ending, but still enjoys the way a story unfolds. According to the old sagas, Freya's chariot was always drawn by cats, not horses. A peculiar choice, right? But cats are independent, graceful, and absolutely not into taking orders. Kinda like her. Historians still debate whether this feline imagery was symbolic of fertility, feminine power, or just a sign that the Norse knew how to write a goddess with personality. You follow behind as the procession moves into a different part of the field, where the trees grow more closely together and the flowers seem to bow when Freya passes. She doesn't look back, but you can feel her expecting you to keep pace. A tiny squirrel darts across the path and pauses, twitching its nose in recognition. And yes, even the squirrels seem unnaturally aware here, like everything within Folkvangr has read the same script and is improvising in harmony. Freya gestures barely. A flick of her wrist and a series of blooms erupt beside you, wild flowers that weren't there seconds ago. Their colors are impossibly vivid: turquoise, deep crimson, even shades you can't name. The air smells like crushed berries and wood smoke. She's showing you something. Not magic exactly, but mastery. Creation through presence. Her power is not screamed, it's whispered. It seeps into things, grows into them, There's a clearing ahead now circled by mossy stones that hum just slightly like tuning forks. Freya stops the chariot. The cats yawn in unison and curl up as if they've been through this 100 times. Probably more. She steps down and walks barefoot onto the grass. Her steps leave no mark. You feel a pull, not physical, but emotional, like your heart recognizes something here. You kneel beside one of the stones, noticing that it's etched with another rune, this one more familiar, a symbol of fertility or maybe protection. The line is blurry in Norse lore. Things often meant more than one thing. And Freya, she was the queen of duality. She was a war goddess and a love goddess, the collector of fallen warriors and the patron of lovers and longing, soft and hard, wild and wise. And cats, they're just the perfect metaphor for that, aren't they? Suddenly, Freya raises her hand. A subtle gesture, but the sky responds. Light thickens, grows golden. The temperature drops a few degrees, not cold exactly, just enough to make you feel aware of your skin. The chariot vanishes, not poof, just gone, like it was never there. The cats remain lazily licking their paws, but Freya's focus is now entirely on you. Her eyes hold yours, and for a split second, you see a flicker of something deep and old, like grief wearing a gown of joy, or a secret wrapped in laughter. She moves again, this time toward a narrow path lined with low, curling vines. You follow. There's a quiet as you walk, broken only by the sound of birds mimicking harp strings in the trees above. The air feels thick with memory. Some of it might even be yours. You get the sense that the chariot isn't the main event. It was just the entrance. Freya has more to show you. You tread softly now, following Freya as the vine-lined path tightens around you. Overhead, the branches begin to arch and weave into a canopy so dense sunlight barely seeps through. What little light does sneak in is dappled gold shimmering in the air like floating pollen. It smells of rose water, burnt amber, and something faintly metallic like old tears. The path opens suddenly into a garden unlike anything you've ever seen. It's not neat, not structured. It's wild and overgrown, but with the elegance of chaos that only nature or a goddess could choreograph. Tulips and bleeding hearts spill over ancient stone walls. Ivy climbs broken statues, some of which seem to be weeping or smiling, depending on the angle. In the center of it all is a shrine, a small moss-covered altar wrapped in climbing roses, each bloom the color of spilled wine. At its base, little golden trinkets, fragments of weapons, braids of hair tied in red silk, and petals that never rot. It's a collection of offerings from 1,000 years of whispered prayers. Freya stops before the shrine and kneels. You hesitate, not sure if you're allowed. But then she tilts her head just a fraction, and you know you may approach. As you draw closer, you see something glinting beneath the roses. A single golden tear caught in the curve of a flower. It doesn't roll down. It just rests there, glowing faintly. You stare at it, and suddenly you remember someone. Not clearly, but enough to ache. Freya gently touches the bloom. The tear vanishes. The sagas say she wept tears of gold for her lost husband Odr, who vanished into wandering and dream. No one knows where he went or why he left. Some claim he was a reflection of Odin himself, or a mortal man elevated to godhood by love. Historians still argue whether Odr was real a symbol or simply a name for longing itself. But one thing's clear: Freya's sorrow didn't destroy her, it bloomed. And this garden, this entire haven of scent and softness, it's grown from grief, not in spite of it. You run your fingers across a vine-covered column. It vibrates softly, like it remembers lullabies. Every plant here seems to carry some emotion, longing, passion, heartbreak, forgiveness. This isn't just a garden. It's a reliquary of feelings. Suddenly, something flits past your shoulder, a blur of wings. A tiny bird made entirely of light darts through the air, leaving a faint musical chime in its wake. You watch it land near the shrine peck, once at a petal, then disappear in a shimmer. Freya rises, her expression unreadable. She doesn't speak, she hasn't once, but her presence says everything. This is where she remembers, where she holds space for every kiss never returned, every goodbye never answered, every love that burned too brightly to last. And here's the quirky bit most people miss: Freya wasn't just a goddess of love. She was also the patron of lust, fertility, and crops. In one legend, she even rides into battle shouting louder than any man, wearing a cloak of falcon feathers and shimmering with rage. But she still comes back here to tend the roses. You follow her deeper into the garden. There are no paths now, just intuition. She walks between flower beds as if the plants part for her, which they probably do. One particularly large bloom leans toward her, and she brushes its petal with the back of her hand like a mother soothing a child. You pass a tree that bears apples shaped more like hearts than fruit. One has a bite missing. You swear you didn't do it. Then again, maybe you did in another life. Somewhere behind you, one of the cats meows a low rolling sound that almost sounds like laughter. You turn, but it's already curled into a patch of time, snoring gently. Freya halts before a small stone pool. It reflects the sky above, except the sky in the pool is sunset, while the real one above is still morning. You blink. The pool ripples once, and the image changes to a scene: two lovers dancing in the rain, spinning wildly, laughing with eyes closed. You recognize one of them, not by face, but by the way they hold the other, by the curve of their shoulder, the angle of their feet. It's a memory too old to be yours, and yet it feels like home. Freya looks at you again, and this time there's a softness in her eyes, a kind of sympathy, maybe even apology. Then she turns and walks on. You take one last glance at the garden, the shrine, the pool of impossible memories, and then you leave them behind. You don't notice the change at first. The air grows stiller, cooler. The scent of roses fades, replaced by something weightier: aged wood, candle smoke, and the faint tang of iron. The hush deepens into a reverent silence, like a library built for ghosts. Then you see it rising ahead from a grove of silver birch trees stands a vast hall with no doors, its roof stitched from woven branches and warm twilight. This is Sesrumnir Freya's Hall of the Fallen. Valhalla may get all the press, but this is where the quiet warriors go. The ones who fought bravely but didn't care for mead hall bragging or eternal wrestling matches. Here in Sesrumnir rest the other half of those slain in battle, the ones Freya claimed first. And make no mistake, she chooses before Odin. That's a detail even some sagas slip past, but it matters. She sees them, the forgotten ones, the wounded ones, the ones who bled for love, not glory. You step inside, and the light shifts dim and golden like the inside of a lantern. The floor is carpeted with moss that muffles your steps. Candles float mid-air, their flames never flickering. Long wooden tables stretch out, but no one feasts loudly. The warriors here sit in small clusters, murmuring stories, braiding each other's hair, tending weapons not with bloodlust, but with gentleness. A woman sharpens a blade and then sets it down beside a loaf of dark bread. A man runs his fingers through a carved piece of wood, something half-finished but precious. None of them notice you, or maybe they do, but choose not to stare. You're just another visitor in a place where time softens and everything smells faintly of pine. You spot Freya again seated at the far end of the hall in a throne of woven roots and antlered branches. The light behind her makes it impossible to see her face clearly, but her posture speaks of power without effort, authority made tender. She rests her hand on the hilt of a sword that doesn't glint. It hums. The sound is barely audible, like a lullaby stuck in your teeth. There's a warmth here different from Valhalla's wild, boisterous frenzy. This is the afterlife of peace, a place where healing continues, where those too tired to boast can simply be. Historians still argue whether Sesrumnir was metaphorical a dream space or a literal hall, but walk these floors and it becomes harder to believe it was ever fiction. The ceiling stretches high, shaped like the belly of a longship turned upside down. You notice constellations drawn into the beams, some familiar, some invented. One resembles a cat stretching mid-yawn. Another, a pair of eyes with stars as pupils. Freya rises. She glides across the moss, and the hall subtly shifts around her warriors, sits straighter. Conversations hush respectfully, but there's no fear, only reverence. She passes you and nods once more, beckoning silently with a flick of her fingers. You follow again. This time, she leads you to a narrow corridor behind the throne where the air cools even more. There's a door now, a simple one, arched and carved with intertwining runes. Freya pauses, places a palm against it. The runes glow briefly, then dissolve into light. Behind the door, a chamber filled with glass orbs suspended by vines. Each orb contains a scene, memories, lives, losses. You see flashes of battlefields, quiet farmhouses, wedding dances, and lonely nights by frozen rivers. Freya walks between them like a curator in the Museum of Hearts. An orb catches your eye. Inside, a young shield maiden teaching a child to throw a spear. The moment freezes as she smiles. You don't know her, But again, that ache of familiarity. Freya lifts a hand, and the orb floats toward her. She presses it gently into the mossy wall, where it sinks like a seed. In its place, a tiny blossom blooms. Blue, unnamed. You blink, and it's already fading. Here's a strange tidbit. Some French sources claimed Cess Rumnir wasn't only a hall, but also a ship able to sail across dimensions or even time. A hall and a vessel, stationary and moving, both at once. A contradiction like Freya herself. Like how death in her care never feels like an ending. You follow her back into the main hall, where the warriors raise cups in her honor, not boisterously, but with a kind of familial affection. No one here feels forgotten. You look back one last time before stepping into the garden again. The doorway vanishes behind you. Cess Rumnir is gone, but the moss clings to your boots. The garden reclaims you gently. The moss underfoot now feels warmer, the sunlight slanting more sharply through trees, with curling bark and fruit so heavy it bows the limbs. But the calm doesn't last long, not when you notice the low hum growing louder, vibrating beneath your skin. It's not the garden singing anymore. It's something older. Freya turns toward a shadowed glade, and you feel it before you see it, a weight in the air like you've stepped too close to a secret. At the center of the glade lies a flat stone slab, and on it rests a necklace so radiant it nearly blinds you. Gold chains interwoven with amber and fire. Jewels that pulse faintly as if remembering who last touched them. This is Brisingamen Freya's most famous treasure, and also maybe her greatest complication. She steps aside, letting you take in the artifact. It's beautiful, yes, but there's something about it that doesn't settle right. A hunger in the glow, a possessiveness. Like it doesn't just want to be worn, it wants to own whoever wears it. According to legend, Freya desired the necklace more than anything. It was made by 4 dwarves craftsmen so skilled their creations could outshine the gods. But they didn't want gold or favor in return. They wanted her. One night, with each of them, and Freya agreed. Historians still argue whether the story was a reflection of patriarchal retellings meant to tarnish a powerful woman's name, or whether it was Freya herself asserting autonomy, claiming pleasure and treasure on her own terms. Either way, Brisingamen came at a cost. Power always does. You reach toward the necklace, but stop inches away. It hums more loudly now, vibrating through your fingertips. Freya watches, not stopping you, but not encouraging you either. Just observing. Then something shifts. You blink, and the garden's colors darken. The fruit turns to stone. The flowers close. The shadows stretch unnaturally long. You're seeing what came after. The necklace once worn stirred envy. Loki, ever the meddler, stole it. Thor, Odin, even Heimdall got tangled in the chaos of recovering it. In one version, a whole war began just to bring it back. In another, it was cursed, causing conflict wherever it gleamed, and yet Freya still wore it. Not out of vanity, but defiance. You back away slowly, The garden begins to right itself. The shadows retreat, the flowers sigh open. Freya walks to the necklace, lifts it gently, and places it around her neck. It seems to settle there like a crown finding its rightful head. Here's a fun detail you may not know. In some fringe accounts, Brisingamen was believed to control light itself, able to shroud its wearer or blind her enemies. Others thought it was a key, something that could open the gates between realms. And Freya, she wore it like it was nothing more than a pendant. She turns to you again, and for a moment her expression is hard like stone, like history. Then she smiles just a little. The kind of smile that says, yes, I did what they said I did, and I'd do it again. There's a lesson here buried beneath myth, and moss desire isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's a kind of divinity. Sometimes it's how a goddess claims her place, not in spite of her choices, but through them. You hear rustling in the trees. The cats return, one yawning so wide its jaw clicks the other, batting lazily at a butterfly made of flame. They flank Freya, now protective but bored. She starts to walk again, and this time her steps leave faint golden footprints in the grass. Not for you to follow necessarily, just so you'll remember. The necklace glints once more before vanishing beneath the folds of her cloak. And you understand something important. This garden isn't just a sanctuary. It's a vault. A living museum of everything Freya has loved, lost, fought for, and forgiven. Even the parts of herself others tried to shame her for, especially those parts. You step behind her, passing through a curtain of vines, that part at her command. The air beyond smells like something stranger, deeper. The magic is changing. The scent hits you first, sharp, earthy, tinged with something smoky and metallic, like someone boiled herbs in a cauldron made of memories. Freya leads you into a hollowed glen, where the trees lean inward, their trunks tattooed with runes so old they barely shimmer anymore. The air is thicker, here the silence different, listening more intently. This is a place of Seder, the old Norse magic. And Freya, as you've probably guessed by now, wasn't just a practitioner. She was the Said Kona, the most powerful female sorceress of her age, maybe of any age. You pause at the edge of the glen. The very ground hums. Symbols spiral faintly beneath your feet, not carved, but grown, woven into the roots, glowing faintly as if responding to your breath. Freya steps into the circle, and without a word, it responds. A slow spiral of golden mist rises coiling around her, like a snake wrapping itself around fire. Her cloak lifts slightly, floating in the magic's quiet gravity. She lifts her hand, and a vision flares to life. Not like the memory orbs from Ses Rumnir. This is raw, fluid, a swirl of futures half formed and too vivid. You see a girl sailing on a shattered boat, A man weeping as his shadow walks away. A crown made of bones and feathers. None of it makes sense, but it all feels like truth. Then it all vanishes. Freya blinks slowly. She exhales. The mist sinks back into the earth, leaving the glen unnervingly still. Cider isn't light magic. It's not sparkles and fairy wings. It's power drawn from the world's raw nerves. It deals in fate, in transformation, in the parts of you you'd rather hide. And historically, it was considered dangerous, effeminate, even shameful. In fact, when Odin, yes, the Odin learned it, some sagas claim it nearly ruined his divine reputation. Historians still argue whether Odin stole the practice, borrowed it, or was taught by Freya herself. Whichever version you believe, the fact remains she was the source. She is the source. And that makes this place dangerous. You step forward. A rune flickers under your foot and flares briefly, pulsing with memory. You're suddenly a child again, no someone else's child chasing fireflies across snow-covered fields. The vision fades, but your skin tingles like it's been dusted in ash. Freya watches you quietly. She's still, but not passive, like a teacher waiting to see which student will actually ask the right question, or a magician deciding whether to reveal the last trick. You wonder if this is what it felt like to stand before a living spell, because that's what she is, isn't she? Not just a goddess, a bridge between love and death, between fate and desire, between what is remembered and what is remade. There's a strange tidbit from lesser-known lore, one that claims Freya's mastery of Satyr allowed her to borrow other people's dreams to wear them like cloaks until they fit her just right. Not to steal exactly, to become, to embody what others longed for, feared, or needed most. And looking at her now, you start to get it. You kneel in the glen, not because you're told to, but because it feels like the only proper response. The ground is soft, and you press your hands into it. The moss is warm, alive. You whisper something not in words, but in meaning. Something like, "I remember you." Freya kneels too, across from you. The runes between you pulse once more. She reaches out and places her palm against your forehead. And then it happens. A flood of images, smells, emotions, a house burning in winter, a kiss that never happened, a war fought with no songs to remember it. You're not sure if these are her memories or yours or someone else's entirely. It doesn't matter. You feel them. You carry them. When she pulls her hand away, you're not the same, not entirely. The Satyr has marked you, not like a brand, like a signature in invisible ink. She stands, and you follow, legs shaky, but heart weirdly light. The glen grows quiet again, as if satisfied with your passing. The runes fade, the trees relax. The path forward reappears. Freya doesn't look back, but you do. And the glen is gone. You emerge into fading light. The garden is no longer blooming in high sun. It's touched now with twilight. A violet haze floats above the ground, like a final exhale, and the sky overhead has softened into that between time where stars begin to blink open, unsure if it's quite night yet. Freya walks ahead of you one last time, but slower now, unhurried. The cats drift along lazily at her sides, one rubbing its face against a tree trunk, the other stretching out into a slow spine-cracking arch before padding behind. You find yourself at a hill, not tall, but broad, a quiet rise that overlooks all of Folkvanger. The meadow you woke in, the glade of cedar, the shrine of golden tears, the roof tree of Sesrumnir, barely visible tucked between mists, and here, beneath a canopy of gently rustling trees, lies a stone bench carved with Vanir symbols, curving spirals, leaves that loop into animal heads, stars that look like sleeping eyes. Freya sits and pats the space beside her. You obey. For a moment, nothing happens. The garden breathes. The wind hums through the trees like a lullaby nearly forgotten. Freya doesn't speak, but her presence says everything it needs to. This is goodbye, but not a farewell. The Vanir, after all, never believed in endings, only changes. Freya was born of them, sister to Freya, daughter of Njord, raised by the sea and softened by the soil. She came to Asgard not in conquest, but as part of a truce, a peace offering shaped like a goddess. And yet, she never belonged entirely to one world. Her heart stayed partly rooted here, in this garden of secrets and songs, unsung. Some say she still visits the humans who dream too deeply, that she rides her chariot through clouds when storms roll in gently. Others say she never left. The myths, of course, are contradictory. In some tales, she survives Ragnarok. In others, she falls with the rest. Historians still argue whether her fate was sealed or if, like everything about her, it remains defiantly undefined. You lean back, letting your weight settle into the bench. A pale blue flower opens beside your foot, even though the sun is gone. Freya watches it, then smiles faintly. She stands again this time with no urgency, no fanfare. Her cats rise as one tails curling like question marks, and together they begin to walk downhill, vanishing slowly into the violet fog. And just before the mist swallows her, she looks back. One final glance, and you swear, just for a heartbeat, you see her mouth the word remember. Then she's gone. You sit in silence. The bench beneath you, warm from her presence, the air still heavy with flowers and fate. And now you stay seated beneath the whispering trees, letting the stillness wrap itself around you like a shawl. The twilight deepens, softening every edge, blurring leaf from shadow memory, from dream. Your breath slows, your hands relax. The garden behind your eyes begins to fade gently, not with loss, but with peace. Each memory from tonight's journey dissolves like mist. The cats and their silent judgment. The glint of Brisingamen in moonlight. the hush of Sesrumnir, where warriors rest without boasting. The pulse of satyr magic threading through the trees. You are not the same as when you arrived. A part of you now belongs to that hidden meadow in the north, a quiet space tucked between story and starlight. Somewhere far away, a breeze stirs the trees in your waking world. Maybe you imagine it, maybe you don't. But in this moment, you are safe. You are still. You are enough. Let your shoulders soften. Let the last of the golden light slip beneath your eyelids. Nothing is chasing you now. You don't need to remember every detail. Just know you were there. And it mattered. Freya's garden remains waiting, blooming, dreaming. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the soft purr of cats in the mist.